Love does not fall apart because of what you get. It falls apart because of what you thought you would get.
We step into love carrying invisible scripts, unspoken lines that we expect the other person to know. These scripts are formed long before the relationship begins, sometimes from what we saw in our parents' marriage, sometimes from stories we read or movies we adored, sometimes from a longing we carried since the first time we felt unseen. We do not always realize we are holding them, yet they guide how we interpret every gesture, every silence, every missed moment.
The problem begins when we confuse these scripts with truth. We assume that if our partner loves us, they will know their role without us telling them. We expect them to anticipate our needs, match our energy, and never fall short of the picture in our minds. But people are not born into our scripts. They are born into their own. And the collision of these unseen expectations can quietly drain the warmth from even the strongest connection. Standards and expectations are not the same. Standards are about values, about the foundations of safety, respect, and trust. They are essential, non-negotiable, and protect the dignity of both partners. Expectations, on the other hand, are about outcomes. They are mental snapshots of how we want love to look, and while they can be beautiful, they are often rigid and unspoken, leaving no room for the imperfect humanity of the person we love. When expectations are too high, too hidden, or too rigid, they stop being a bridge between two people and start becoming a wall. The missed call that was simply a busy day becomes a sign they no longer care. The forgotten date becomes proof that love is fading. The absence of a certain reaction becomes evidence that you are not understood. These conclusions might feel real, but often they are reflections of the gap between the script we carry and the reality we live in. The truth is, love thrives not because two people always meet each other's expectations, but because they learn to see and accept each other as they are. It grows when expectations are spoken, negotiated, and adjusted, when there is room for both partners to be human without fear that one mistake will define the relationship. In the journey ahead, we will explore 3 clear signs that you may be expecting too much from your partner. Recognizing them is not about lowering your worth or abandoning your needs. It is about clearing the fog so you can see the difference between what keeps love alive and what slowly suffocates it. It is about keeping the spark without burning both of you out. And most importantly, it is about choosing connection over silent disappointment, so love has a chance to last. Every relationship needs standards. Without them, there is no foundation for trust or safety. Standards are the principles that shape the way you show up for each other, the boundaries that define what is acceptable and what is not. They are clear, they are non-negotiable, and they protect the dignity of both people. Respect, honesty, emotional safety, and mutual support are not luxuries. They are the minimum conditions for love to survive. Expectations are different. Expectations are the mental stories you carry about how love should be expressed, the invisible scripts that you may never say out loud but still expect your partner to follow. They might be shaped by your upbringing, by culture, by the love stories you have admired, or even by the ways you were once hurt and promised yourself you would never be treated again. While standards are about values, expectations are about outcomes, about the specific actions you believe will prove those values are real. For example, a standard might say, "I will not be in a relationship with someone who lies to me," while an expectation might say, "You should always text me back within an hour to prove that you care." A standard might say, "I need to be treated with kindness, even in moments of disagreement," while an expectation might say, "You should never raise your voice at all, no matter the context." The first is about respect and safety. The second is about a fixed scenario you want repeated without variation.
The danger begins when these two are confused. If you treat an unmet expectation as if a core standard has been broken, you may react with the same intensity as you would to an actual betrayal. A missed call becomes disrespect, a forgotten errand becomes proof of carelessness, a different opinion becomes evidence of emotional distance. Over time, these reactions can erode the trust and closeness that standards are meant to protect.
Healthy couples know the difference. They protect their standards fiercely, because without them, love cannot thrive. But they hold expectations loosely, allowing space for conversation, for adjustment, and for the humanity of their partner. They understand that not every missed expectation is a crisis, and not every change from the script means love is gone. Instead, they use those moments as chances to understand each other better, to see how love might be expressed in new ways. When you separate standards from expectations, you stop counting every missed gesture as evidence against your partner. You begin to ask, is this a violation of my values, or is it simply a different expression of care? You protect the non-negotiable parts of love, while giving room for flexibility in the rest. And in that space, the relationship can breathe, grow, and adapt without being crushed by the pressure to meet a perfect, unchanging image of love. One of the clearest signs that you may be expecting too much from your partner is believing that they should just know. They should know when you are upset without you saying it. They should know exactly what gesture will make you feel loved. They should know how to comfort you without you explaining why you need it. This belief feels romantic, like proof of a deep and unbreakable bond. But in reality, it sets the stage for frustration and disappointment. When you expect mind reading, you create a silent test that your partner is bound to fail. They do not live inside your thoughts. They live inside their own, shaped by their own experiences and interpretations. What feels obvious to you may not even register for them, and when they inevitably miss the signs you thought were clear, you may interpret it as indifference or rejection, even though it is simply human limitation. Over time, this pattern can create a cycle. You feel unseen and let down. They feel accused and misunderstood. You withdraw or become cold, hoping they will notice and ask what is wrong. They react defensively or with confusion. Each round of this unspoken game adds another layer of distance between you. The desire for someone to know without asking often comes from a deep need to feel understood and valued without effort. It may be rooted in childhood, in relationships where your feelings were ignored, or in stories that taught you love means effortless understanding. But real intimacy is not built on guessing, it is built on communicating. Healthy love does not diminish when you have to ask for what you need. It grows stronger because you both have the chance to respond with intention. Communicating your needs is not a sign of weakness in the relationship, it is a sign of maturity. When you tell your partner what you need, you are giving them the opportunity to succeed instead of setting them up to fail. You are replacing silent disappointment with clear and direct connection. And when they respond, it is not because they stumbled upon the right action by accident. It is because they chose to love you in the way you asked. Letting go of the mind-reading expectation frees both of you. It takes away the constant tension of hidden rules and replaces it with the steady trust that comes from honesty. It shifts the focus from testing love to building it. And it opens the possibility for love to be expressed in ways you never imagined, because you are no longer confined to the narrow script you carried alone. Another sign that you may be expecting too much from your partner is holding on to the belief that real love means never arguing, never disagreeing, never feeling frustrated with each other. It is an appealing fantasy, the picture of two people so perfectly in sync that nothing ever disrupts their harmony. In movies, love often looks like this, effortless and endlessly peaceful. But in reality, expecting zero conflict is one of the fastest ways to damage a relationship. Conflict is not the enemy of love. It is the evidence that two different human beings are trying to share one life. No matter how similar you are, you will always have differences in values, habits, priorities, and perspectives. These differences will surface, sometimes in small daily choices, sometimes in deeply important decisions. When handled with respect and openness, they do not weaken love, they deepen it. because they reveal more of who each person truly is. The danger of expecting zero conflict is that it turns any disagreement into a sign of failure. If you believe that fighting means the relationship is broken, you may avoid bringing up important issues, hoping to keep the peace on the surface. This silence does not protect love. It starves it. Because unspoken frustration has a way of growing in the dark until it bursts out in ways that are far harder to repair. Healthy couples understand that it is not whether you argue but how you argue that matters. They know the difference between destructive conflict and constructive conflict. Destructive conflict aims to win, to wound, or to retreat without resolution. Constructive conflict looks for understanding, seeks compromise, and preserves respect, even in disagreement. It is not always comfortable, but it strengthens trust because both people know they can face differences without fear of losing each other. Letting go of the zero conflict fantasy means accepting that love will sometimes be messy. There will be moments when you do not see eye to eye, when emotions run high, when patience is tested. These moments are not proof that love is fading, they are proof that you are both human. The real danger is not the presence of conflict, but the absence of the skills to navigate it. When you replace the dream of never fighting with the goal of fighting well, you give your relationship room to breathe. You stop fearing disagreements and start seeing them as opportunities to grow closer, to learn more about each other, and to strengthen the bond that brought you together. In the end, lasting love is not about avoiding every storm. It is about learning how to walk through the rain without letting go of each other's hand. The third sign that you may be expecting too much from your partner is when the gestures that once felt like gifts begin to feel like duties. In the early days, you might have been touched when they brought you coffee in the morning, when they planned a surprise date, or when they stayed up late just to keep you company. These moments felt special because they were freely given. But over time, without realizing it, you may start to expect them as a regular part of the relationship. What was once a delightful surprise becomes a requirement, and when it does not happen, disappointment quickly turns into resentment. This shift often happens quietly. Our brains are wired to form habits, to connect repeated actions with certain meanings. If your partner consistently does something kind, you may start to see it as proof of love and commitment. When they miss it once, you might feel uneasy. When they miss it twice, you might feel hurt. When they miss it repeatedly, you may interpret it as a sign that they no longer care. The truth may be far simpler. They might be busy, distracted, or dealing with their own needs. But when an expectation is unspoken, the gap between assumption and reality can feel like rejection. The danger in turning preferences into obligations is that it changes the energy behind the gesture. Your partner no longer feels the freedom to give because they want to. They feel the pressure to give because they have to. And when love is driven by obligation rather than choice, it starts to lose its warmth. The act may still be done, but the joy is missing, and eventually both people start to feel trapped in a cycle of giving and receiving without gratitude. To break this pattern, it helps to bring awareness back to appreciation. Remind yourself why that gesture mattered to you in the first place, and when it happens, acknowledge it. Gratitude has a way of breathing life back into actions that have started to feel routine. If a preference is truly important to you, communicate it openly, rather than assuming it will continue forever without change. Allow space for it to be expressed differently, in ways that still carry meaning, but may adapt to the realities of your life together. When you release your partner from the weight of constant obligation, you make room for love to show up in new and creative ways. You stop counting how many times they met an invisible rule and start noticing the moments, big and small, where they choose you. And in that shift, resentment loses its hold, replaced by a deeper appreciation for the fact that love is never owed. It is always chosen. Every relationship has its own capacity, shaped by the time, energy, and emotional resources of the two people in it. Some seasons are abundant, filled with space to give generously and meet each other's needs with ease. Other seasons are stretched thin, with responsibilities, stress, or personal challenges reducing the energy you have for each other. High expectations can be healthy when both partners have the capacity to meet them, but when capacity is limited, holding on to the same demands without adjustment can quietly turn love into pressure. A reality check begins with honesty about where you both are. If one of you is navigating a demanding job, caring for a family member, or recovering from personal struggles, it is natural for attention and availability to shift. This does not mean love has faded. It means the bandwidth to express it in certain ways is temporarily reduced. Expecting the same level of energy and presence during these times can lead to guilt, frustration, and unnecessary conflict. Adjusting expectations is not about lowering your worth or accepting less than respect and care. It is about aligning your hopes with the reality of your shared circumstances. This might mean identifying the essentials, the needs that must be met for the relationship to remain healthy, and allowing flexibility in areas where change will not harm the core of your connection. It is an act of protecting love from being weighed down by demands that cannot realistically be met in the moment. The process starts with open conversation. Ask each other what feels possible right now, what non-negotiable commitments must stay in place, and where you can both give more grace. Sometimes this means scaling back on certain routines temporarily, finding simpler ways to connect, or redefining how you show support while life is demanding more from you both. When expectations match capacity, love becomes sustainable. You can give without feeling drained and receive without feeling guilty. The relationship gains resilience because you have learned how to adapt together rather than pulling apart under the strain of unrealistic demands. And when the season shifts and capacity expands again, you can raise expectations with confidence, knowing you have already built the trust to adjust when needed. In the end, this reality check is not about accepting a lesser version of love. It is about preserving the quality of love in all its seasons. By aligning your expectations with what is truly possible, you ensure that love remains a choice you both can make freely, without resentment or exhaustion standing in the way. Expectations that are not expressed or adjusted in time often harden into criticism. What begins as a quiet hope becomes a repeated disappointment, and what was once a desire turns into a judgment. Criticism does not build closeness, it builds walls, because it attacks the person rather than addressing the behavior. The key to preventing this shift is to develop skills that help you communicate and recalibrate before frustration has the chance to grow into resentment. The first skill is turning should into a request. The word should carries a weight of obligation. It suggests failure if the action is not taken. A request, on the other hand, opens space for choice and collaboration. Saying you should check in with me more often sounds like a demand, but saying I feel more connected when we talk each evening invites dialogue about how to make that happen in a way that works for both of you.
The second skill is replacing absolutes with specifics. Words like always and never are blunt instruments that often distort the truth and provoke defensiveness. Instead of saying you never listen to me, you could say, when I told you about my day yesterday and you looked at your phone, I felt unheard. This keeps the focus on a specific moment rather than making a sweeping judgment about their character.
The third skill is learning to pause before reacting. When an expectation is not met, emotions can rise quickly, and reacting in the heat of that moment often escalates the situation. Agreeing on a pause rule gives both of you permission to step back, reflect, and return to the conversation with clarity rather than anger. The fourth skill is building regular check-ins into your relationship. Waiting until frustration boils over makes it harder to resolve, because by then the issue has often tangled with multiple layers of hurt. A weekly or bi-weekly check-in allows you to adjust expectations in real time, discuss what is working, and identify small issues before they grow. Practicing these skills turns expectations into shared goals rather than silent tests. It replaces the cycle of disappointment and criticism with a rhythm of honest conversation and mutual problem-solving. Both partners feel safer to express their needs without fear of being judged, and both feel more willing to listen because the conversation stays grounded in respect. In this environment, love is not weighed down by unspoken demands. It is strengthened by the ongoing commitment to understand and support each other as you both grow. Not every high expectation is a sign that you are asking too much. Some expectations are not only reasonable, they are essential for a healthy and respectful relationship. These are called boundaries, and they exist to protect your well-being, your dignity, and your sense of safety. They are not about controlling your partner. They are about defining the minimum conditions under which love can thrive without harm. Boundaries are the non-negotiable lines you hold for yourself. They include being treated with respect in all situations, receiving honesty even when the truth is uncomfortable, feeling safe emotionally and physically, and being supported rather than undermined. Wanting these things is not being demanding. It is affirming your right to be in a relationship where you are valued and secure. The difference between a healthy boundary and an impossible expectation lies in the intention and the flexibility. A healthy boundary might say, I need to feel emotionally safe during our conversations, which means no name-calling or threats. An impossible expectation might say, you must always agree with me so I never feel upset. The first protects your core well-being. The second attempts to eliminate all discomfort, which is neither realistic nor fair. Upholding boundaries requires clarity. You must be able to articulate them to yourself before you can communicate them to your partner. It also requires consistency, because if you allow boundaries to be crossed without consequence, you send the message that they are optional. Over time, this can erode not only the health of the relationship but also your self-respect. It is equally important to recognize that boundaries work both ways. Your partner has their own, and respecting theirs is just as essential as maintaining yours. This mutual recognition creates an environment where both people feel safe to be themselves, where love is not about pushing limits, but about protecting the shared space where trust grows. High expectations rooted in healthy boundaries are not obstacles to closeness. They are the framework that makes closeness possible. They create a container where both partners know they can be open without fear of harm, where disagreements can be navigated without personal attacks, and where the relationship is a place of refuge rather than tension.
When you honor your boundaries and respect your partners, you remove much of the confusion that leads to unnecessary conflict. Love becomes a conscious choice made within the safety of mutual respect. And in that safety, affection can deepen, trust can strengthen, and the connection between you can remain resilient through the changes and challenges of life.
Loving someone is not about shaping them into the perfect image in your mind and measuring them against it every day. It is about seeing them as they are, accepting that they will have strengths you did not expect and flaws you did not plan for, and choosing them again and again with open eyes. Expectations will always exist, but when they are too rigid, too hidden, or too unrealistic, they stop being a bridge between two people and start becoming a wall that divides them. Resetting your expectations does not mean lowering your standards or settling for less than you deserve. It means aligning your vision of love with the truth of the person you are with and the reality of the life you share. It means holding on tightly to your healthy boundaries while allowing flexibility in how love is expressed. It means protecting the essentials: respect, honesty, safety, and care, while giving grace for the imperfections that make love human. This shift begins with awareness. You start noticing when you expect your partner to read your mind, when you imagine a relationship with no conflict, or when you turn a preference into a rule. You pause and ask yourself whether these expectations are fair, whether they are possible, and whether they are helping your relationship grow or slowly eroding it. Awareness opens the door to choice, and choice is where change begins. The next step is conversation. You share your needs openly, not as accusations, but as invitations. You listen to your partner's needs with the same respect you hope they will show you. Together, you decide what you can both commit to now, what can be adjusted, and what can be let go of entirely. This process is not about one person winning and the other losing. It is about building a shared understanding that keeps both people valued and heard. Finally, resetting expectations is an ongoing practice, not a one-time event. Life will change, seasons will shift, and both of you will face moments when capacity is high and moments when it is limited. Revisiting and recalibrating expectations together keeps the relationship strong because it proves that your love is adaptable. A love that adapts is a love that lasts. In the end, healthy love is not about finding someone who can meet every expectation you have ever carried. It is about finding someone who is willing to grow with you, to forgive with you, to stand with you when it is easy and when it is hard. It is about being that person for them in return. When you choose to reset your expectations in this way, you create a relationship where love is not suffocated by pressure but energized by trust and understanding. And in that space, love can breathe, thrive, and endure.